Esteban and Manuel, thank you guys for joining me today. Really excited to tell your SMU story. We were chatting a little bit before this, laughing about kind of how some of these things we might go over. So, we'll hit the SMU piece, definitely. We'll talk about the state of soccer, as you guys are passionate about and seen from a lot of different angles. But for those of our audience who don't know you two, would you please introduce yourself?
Yep.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
I'm Esteban Mariel, and I am a co-founder and president of City Futsal, and graduated from SMU in 2009.
And I am Manuel Mariel, co-founder of City Futsal, also graduated from SMU in 2009.
So, business partners, soccer teammates, was there ever a moment when you guys thought about going different paths at any point in youth, career, college, career, or has it always been a team effort?
And I mean, there was always the pro route. I mean, that was always the initial and always the dream. And I think for every kid playing,
Hmm.
you want to go, you want to play, and you want to play at the highest level. Um, so that was always kind of our initial, for both of us, and that's kind of what drove us to compete and to continue to grow and improve and get out there and play every day. But we always had this knack, both of us together, of working together and wanting to play together and always really comfortable. But it's funny. We were always our we were never our best critic, I guess you could
Hmm.
say. In a young age, we were always kind of leaned on each other, and if he got down, I got down with him, and but obviously, throughout the years, and I think especially at SMU, we learned, very, very quickly, that we had to be, you know, our biggest critics within each other and had to push each other when one was down. Then it wasn't about, oh, dude, it's okay, don't worry, you're gonna be okay. It was like, hey, dude, strap your boots. You got to do something a little bit more. Let's get it going. So in terms of us doing something together, I mean, I think it was always a growing, it was always growing. It was always kind of morphing into
Right.
something different. We never really knew, but, we both kind of also we knew we wanted to play together at the end of the
Yep.
day. We wanted to always kind of be close together in some way,
Yeah.
shape, or form.
So you guys have one of the more unique and cool stories in the fact that so much of your childhood and what you guys were building in your youth towards soccer became such an impact and a part of what you did as a profession and a career, right? So we'll jump around a little bit here, but you guys, it sounds like we're kind of pegged as soccer was something you were going to pursue pretty hard at a young age. So let's talk about youth soccer. What was it like when you guys were growing up in Dallas? Was obviously there weren't programs like you guys are building now, and it sounded like for you to get the top competition, you had to leave the country. Where tie into a little bit y'all story to today, what's available for kids and parents who have kids who are aspiring athletes in soccer and kind of what that landscape looks like.
Yeah, no, you hit it, Mitch. I mean, when we were growing up, it was the club scene was very different. The club scene kind of started at that, 10, 11, 12-year-old age. You
Uh-huh.
played rec soccer. We played DESA, Dallas East Soccer Association. My dad was the coach. We were the Red Bulls. And then you got your opportunity to go play club select. And
Mhm.
it was, a little more serious. Wanted to train twice a week, right? Have your game on the weekend, Classic League and Richland College.
Uh-huh.
And each club team back then really had one team per age group. So it was very much a, um, a specific group of players that were playing. And those were the talented players, the players that wanted
Uh-huh.
to play at the next level. And so that's the biggest difference from when we were growing up until today, and now what youth soccer looks like. And yeah, there were not programs of training every day, right? If you want to train additionally, you'd go out and you do skills on your own. You go touch a ball, you go
Right.
play on your own. And so we got an opportunity. My father
sent Manuel and I to Brazil after the Dallas Cup when we hosted Santos FC here, and we went at around 10 years old to go train in Brazil, and it was supposed to be a summer thing, and my dad ended up keeping us there and leaving us there and saying, keep doing this, go ahead and keep getting the training. And so that was Manuel and I's first experience, I think, with, training at a professional environment, right?
Mhm.
Getting introduced to futsal was the first time Manuel and I were introduced to futsal. And so we came back very different players,
Mm.
for that I think it was like a 9-month stint there. We came back very different players. And so I think that was the first time my dad, realized, number one, the importance of being in obviously a professional environment, but also the importance of futsal and what that really did for our development. So, that difference from today, today you have FC Dallas, you have professional teams that have academies, they
Mhm.
train every day. Kids go to school together and then train as well. And if you're not in those academy teams, you have everybody else is trying to get there, and so you have a lot more of these individual trainers,
Mhm.
programs now that are school programs that kids can train in the morning and go to school K through 12 or go to a different school to be able to do that. And
Right.
so the opportunities to train daily, and to play daily. And obviously, our program of futsal, of having futsal as a weekend, week out, league
Right.
opportunity for kids to play is what we didn't have then. And so there are a lot of new programs and elements of soccer today that were not there. However, the club scene has changed very much in the youth today. It's very much where there's 10, 20, 30 teams,
Mhm.
let's say for FC Dallas on the U9, U10. So there are a lot more teams. Obviously, there's a lot more kids playing. So I think from a standpoint of where the talent
Mhm.
is you know, is very different, right? It's everywhere.
Yep.
And I think that those are kind of the biggest differences from when we were kind of growing up, what we had to do to get that training and what there is today, and for kids to be able to, get additional training and play as much
Yeah.
as they want.
And you guys have seen it from being in it to then now operating a portion of it, right? And youth sports has become such big business, right? Not everyone, like you mentioned, in our day, there's probably the few that had the private coach, and not everyone had a twin brother that they could just go in the back and train with, right? I think that's an advantage. But when does it
Sure.
become, in y'all's experience, and this is, I know, a pretty wide open subject here, but like too much train skills versus game time, kind of what's the perfect balance? And then at the same time, like as a parent with kids who want to play sports, like do they have to be in these academies to even play college soccer one day? Or like when does it become, what's kind of the your recommended balance? You guys have young kids that I'm sure love
Yeah.
soccer, and but you think about it as parents too, like, do I just want them to play soccer 7 days a week, 4 hours a day? Like, where do you guys think about that? But then at the same time being business owners and you want people in the system, right?
No, that's Mitch, that's a loaded question. Absolutely. I mean,
That's what I'm
look,
here for.
yeah, no, everything is balance at the end of the day, right? And at the end of the day, everybody's going to experience the game on their own time, and everybody's trying to figure out, what the best route is. Look, when we were growing up, what was great and what I think held a lot of value was, and I think what was clear was there was a clear path from recreational soccer to the club scene, right? And you knew, okay, if I'm playing for a club team, I'm a little more serious. There's a pathway here to college,
Yeah.
potentially to get a scholarship or to play in college. Today, there's just so many more kids playing, so many more opportunities, but then that kind of throws the wrench in. It's like, what's a good opportunity? Opportunity is not always great just because
Mhm.
it's there, and you don't want to
Right.
take it just because it's there. Look, today Sam and I always say, you know the best way to get into the sport and playing is to play. I mean, Esteban
Yeah.
and I started City Futsal with pickup games, and we introduced pickup games to the market back in 2010, 2010, in
Mm,
gym. And it was basically, you come in, you pay your 5, $10, something around there. Actually, we started with
mhm,
$2. And and you came in for the hour, 2 hours, and you played. And it was rotation, right? You first 3 goals, or, first or 5 minutes, whoever's winning. And and it was great. It was that free play that really kind of United States and the kids here were missing because
mhm,
A, it's huge, and the neighborhood play was not happening,
mhm,
and that's for us when you talk about the 10,000 hours, you talk about training for kids, it's about playing. It's playing.
yeah,
It's getting to enjoy the game, getting to love the game, getting to experience it, watch other kids play, try things without the pressure of having, a coach or your parent or somebody,
right,
telling you, "Hey, maybe we gotta do these things, so that we can get better, or we can, one day hopefully get a scholarship and go to college or go pro."
right,
So think there's a balance of it. If your kid's coming in and he's saying, "Hey, I want to get better. I want to do this. I want to try these things." I think, then you can start to implement some type of, what we call today skill sessions.
mhm,
But I think as Tim and I, we also have our own philosophy on and methodology on, what's skills, what's technique, what parts of the game can you really start to develop in a kid at a young age. I mean, you don't want to go skills and hardcore training at a young age all the time and have this schedule because
mhm,
kids, you got to develop other parts of the game. There's the mental part of the game, there's the physical part of the game, there's the obviously the technical part of the game,
right,
there's just the playing and just enjoyment of the game, being a fan of the game, right? So those are all things that you got to balance as a parent, and it's
right,
hard because, it's where are the resources? Who's telling you, like, those opportunities? Who's telling you the truth here? And is it
right,
just to push business to an individual or an organization? Or is it actually something that's more holistic and geared toward the development of your kid?
right,
You know?
right,
And so those are tough questions. And I think everybody's got their own perspective on it. And so I'm not saying I'm right and everybody else is wrong. Sam and I always say, you do what you know, and
right,
doesn't mean you're wrong, doesn't mean you're right. And that's just what the experience is at the end of the day. But we would totally, for us, if there's a parent asking us, our big thing is, hey, go out and play, get a group of
right,
friends, pickup games are huge. We offer leagues year round at City Futsal, but with zero tape, you don't need player cards, you only need five
yeah,
kids to on a team. There's really no standings, there's no champion or no
right,
relegation of anything like that, right? So
mhm,
it's kind of play.
Right, and it's
so,
small side, right, Mitch? I mean, I think when you talk about free play or pickup, you want your child to be on the ball as much as possible. That's why people maybe gear their time towards an individual session, and
makes
that's
sense, yeah,
fine, right? But an individual session, when I always say skill building is not touching the ball. Skill building, you need a defender, right? You need a
mm,
goal. You need another player that's with you because the game is about making decisions, right?
right,
And how quickly you can make decisions. We talk about, perception, decision, execution. That circular rotation of events needs to get quicker. And the only way to get quicker at that is to see that situation 1,000 times rather than
mm,
1 or 2 times,
right,
right? And so, if I'm working on shooting, I need to have a goalie or a defender on me,
right,
right, to be able to keep the shot off, right? Or if I'm working on dribbling, I need to be able to dribble a defender, not a cone, because the cone doesn't move, right? And so
right,
and for a kid, those things are so difficult at a young age for them to understand a cone versus a player. And then so Mano and I talk about defining skill work, defining coordination work, defining play is very important to the kids. So they understand, hey, son, daughter, you're doing cone work to work on your coordination with the ball, right?
Mm,
It's not skills with the ball. You're working on your coordination, right?
mm,
Once you set defender, now we can work on the skill of dribbling, right? Because that defender might not take your feint, right? They might stay
right.
with you. So you have to, work on, okay, I have to do something different. So what I would tell, and I think Manuel and I are on the same page with this, what we would tell young parents is when you have these young kids, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to like that 9, 10, before they hit puberty,
Mhm,
playing is super important because we talk about molding a player. And at a young age, if I'm doing technical work, then I start to shave this player. And we don't want to
mm,
shave players. We don't want to create something. We don't want to create a diamond, a circle, a square. What we
yeah,
want is we want them to stay malleable. We want them to continue to mold. And what the game does is one of the best teachers is the game. That is what starts to mold the player into what they are as a player and how they see it, how they perceive it. And then when they
mhm,
hit puberty, right? And right before puberty, you start to refine things, right? That player starts to turn to 11, 12, 13, 14, right? And you go, okay, they are very defensive. They have a knack for goal, right? They
mm, mm,
have speed with, and cross the ball, whatever it may be. So we start to define that. We refine it. We say, okay, let's work on you in front of goal, right?
yeah,
But Mitch, we only continue to do things when we're good at it, right? When we're not good at something, usually,
Or we enjoy it as
or we
well.
enjoy it,
yeah,
right? When we enjoy it, we continue to do it. When we don't and we don't get better at something, we usually go, okay, I'm done with this, So we really want, Manuel and I's
yeah,
big push is having kids play. That's
So don't
number one.
so don't look at and don't compare your child with the child across the
right,
field at the end of the day. If
right,
your kid is out there running around, having fun, tripping over the ball, they're
yeah,
they're giving effort. And then at the end of the day, it's like the question we always say, the question you ask your kid at the end of the game is, "Hey buddy, did you have a good time?" And if they're like, "Yeah, I had the best time," and they're
mm,
not if they're comparing themselves to the other kid and they're talking about
mhm,
them, then all of a sudden, you know, you're not giving them the right tools to improve themselves. 'Cause at the end of the day, that's what they want to do. You want to improve themselves. They want to gain confidence on the ball, gain the love of
yeah,
the sport, and then the rest will come. I mean, there's so many you have so many years in the process. Yeah, you trust the process. There's
right,
it's the journey that you're in. It's not the end result
And
at all.
and lastly, Mitch, we're not saying that individual skills is bad for a young
right,
player,
No.
right? It's what Manuel goes back to is balance, right? So
right,
once a week they're doing it to refine
y
that coordination to be better
yeah,
coordinated, right? Awesome. But if they're doing that 4 days a week, skill work, and they're only playing once a week on a big field, how much game time, how much interaction, how much situation are
right.
they getting to really see, right?
Yeah,
So
you guys do a great job of sharing, I think, the mindset and the thoughtfulness and the mentality you guys have and what you're building and the community, I think, is such a big aspect of what you guys have, and that all comes down to sharing the same values, which was incredible to hear the way you guys put that, and I know their kids are in a good spot when they're at City Futsal. Back to the story of you guys, and I think a lot of your history, like we're trying to go over, bleeds into what you created. Um, you guys graduate high school, you have sounds like a lot of opportunities in the soccer world. Tell us a little bit about the recruitment process and why you guys picked SMU to play soccer.
Woo!
well,
If you can remember
Mitch,
that long ago, guys.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
no, we
yeah.
do. It feels like yesterday. It was very different when we were growing up. College really wasn't. There wasn't this rush to college, right? Manuel and I
Mhm,
actually graduated high school early, a year early.
mhm,
We did night school, we did summer school to get our credits to graduate
mhm,
early, and we did that because we wanted to play pro. So we went back to Brazil. graduated our junior year and spent a year at Cruzeiro in Belo Horizonte, and played there and had an amazing experience. And my father actually told us, a year in, look, guys, I think it's time, you guys come back, and I think colleges are out. Manuel and I were like, what are you talking about?
Wow.
College? We never went and did kind of that, that whole recruiting process. So
Yeah.
we ended up, with a very short period of time, going and visiting a couple different schools.
Yeah, no, we did.
We did kind of that process of visiting,
West
West
Virginia,
Virginia,
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati,
Mhm.
SMU, obviously, and
But the
one
top
school in
the
particular.
top programs really you were kinda considering, and is that kind of a
We didn't
thing? Or
know
you
what
knew
top
coaches?
programs were, right? We
Okay.
that the scene wasn't very familiar to us, so we were looking at Division I soccer because that was, we wanted to play at the highest level in college,
Right.
and we ended up actually going to University of Maryland in Baltimore County, actually our first year, and we were
Mm,
recruited there. Both got full rides, and going back to Manuel and I wanting to play together, that was kind of the thing. We always were like, we want to be a
right, package
package
a deal.
deal when we went
Yeah.
somewhere. So they they offered us a full ride. Manuel and I accepted that. So we went off to Maryland our first year in Baltimore and spent a year there. Had a fantastic time, a great experience.
Nobody told us about the cold weather though.
Yeah, we were
I
told
was
by
like,
their
Nobody warned us
yes,
about that.
Dallas and Brazil to Maryland, that's,
Yeah,
you got
exactly.
hoodwinked on that one.
yeah, so we after a year, Manuel and I decided, look, we want to go somewhere where the weather is better for us. So I think that goes into the conversation when kids are looking at
Oh,
college.
oh,
Is like Manuel and I, when we mentor or talk to kids today, it's about, let's look at the list, right? Let's put down the list, let's rank it, right? Is weather
Mhm.
important? That needs to be important. Is size of school
the
important?
social life important.
Social life important, right?
Is the degree important? What do
Right.
you want to go for?
Yeah.
Does it have the degree you want? Right. So those are things that can kind of weed out the schools that you maybe have on your list down
Mm,
to a good handful.
When I and also it's also a lot of our friends, a lot of buddies of ours, and I know a lot of kids today, they make decisions based off of just the soccer program.
Right.
And that's
right.
always the thing is there's a life after the soccer program, so
Right.
if it doesn't have something that you want to do, you're not interested in, then you're going to be, and a lot of guys get stuck just being thrown into a degree that they have no interest in
No
doing
passion,
at
yeah.
the end of it.
That's a
No
good point.
passion.
Right. So that those are things that were important. I think after the fact, when we look back and we have our experience on it, our perspective, we have a different perspective now on the college, route and how to look at that and how to navigate that. But at that point, Manuel and I were making decisions, on the fly, not on the fly, but based on what was there in front of us. And
Yeah.
so we decided, hey, Dad, Mom, we want to leave. We want to go somewhere where it's warm. So Shellis Heineman was the coach then, and spoke to my father, and he knew about Manuel and I. He had known us because it was a local college there in
Mhm.
Dallas, and so
Mhm.
familiar. And Manuel and I are familiar with all the guys that played because they were guys we played with or against in
Right.
Dallas. Majority was a
Right.
Dallas team. So Manuel and I transferred into SMU our sophomore year, and yeah, the rest is
That's
history.
the
The
rest is
rest is
history. We were teasing before that, SMU football and basketball gets a lot of the attention these days with the move to the ACC, but SMU soccer's kind of been the crown jewel of the athletics program, men's and women, for the better part of 30, 40 years, right? What was that like stepping onto the field with, expectations of winning and a little bit of y'all's time there and the success you guys had?
Yeah, that was for us it was definitely different coming from UMBC to SMU. I mean, you stepped on a field, you had literally 32 guys that all could start and play,
Mm,
on the starting 11 team. From all the way from freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors. I mean,
wow.
everybody was quality. So, that was something that obviously, and for Esteban and I mean, going to Brazil and playing in Brazil was huge, and obviously the same thing. Everybody in Brazil could play, and everybody was a baller. But it was a bit different. Stepping on the college campus at SMU, it was foreign to us. I think a little bit, just because we knew all the guys as well, and so everybody kind of had an expectation off of
Mm.
everybody else as well that
Uh,
you had to perform day in, day out. You could not SMU, you couldn't take a break. You couldn't, take an easy practice. I mean, every single session was, it was grueling, and it could be intimidating for a lot of guys as well. And also, obviously, the school, the academics in the school was also, at a high level. And so the expectation all around as a student athlete was very high. And it's funny, the day you walk into SMU and you sit down with the athletic advisor, you know, they tell you all the guys are sitting in a room and they say, "Hey guys, you guys are student athletes. Student before you're an athlete, right?" A
mhm,
lot of the guys are like, what are they talking about? And it's true, not a lot of these players go into this with the expectation that you've got to pass your classes, you've got to go to class. I mean, you're doing a 3-hour session in the morning, and then right after that, getting a quick bite, and you're going right into your first class, and you're in class all day long. Esteban
mhm,
and I, obviously, we worked as well training kids. So we, after class, late night, we would be working, training kids, then getting ready, studying whatever we needed to do, and we do it all over again. And then, your travel, you're missing class, you're missing tests, you're missing things that, could benefit you, obviously, on the academic side, but
mhm,
that you had to focus a lot of your energy into what you were doing on the field as well, because again, there's 32 guys out there that all wanted to play,
right.
and so you had to give it all on the field as well. So that balance between both at SMU was something I think we had to get familiar with. And
Mhm,
obviously for us, we were up for the challenge. We did. We made a ton of good friends, and obviously, we enjoyed every competitive moment there. But yeah, it was definitely a change, but you got to be prepared for it. And I think that's the biggest thing, right? Most kids, most student athletes going into school, and especially on a soccer level, I'll tell you, basketball and football, and it's nothing towards basketball and football at all, a lot of that expectation is playing the sport. I mean, there's
mhm,
a lot of, revenue going towards those sports. It's a lot of expectation on that side. With soccer, yeah, we were extremely good for a long time, and we still are.
mhm,
Well, it doesn't get the same cachet as the basketball,
mhm,
football. So you're having to do really well in school. You're having to do
right.
really well on the field, and so that was really tough, having to do both of those and having that high of an expectation for a student athlete, without really getting the accolades that a basketball or
Mhm,
football program
right.
get.
And so you guys eat, sleep, breathe soccer from the age of 5, it sounds like. You're in school, you're managing soccer expectations of success, and I'm sure you're enjoying that, but at the same time, probably diving deeper into the academic side than maybe you'd ever had before with the aspirations of playing pro soccer. Were you ever ready to kind of step away from the game and say, I'm going to go into a more traditional business career, or was soccer still a fire that was lit and something you guys wanted to pursue professionally once graduation came upon?
Yeah, I mean, look, soccer was, it's one thing that we tried to actually teach and mentor kids today
Hmm.
is to not allow the sport to define you,
Mm,
um, but to put your imprint on the sport, because the sport's not going away. If you went away
mhm,
tomorrow, the sport's still going to be there. And so, if you're allowing the sport to define every aspect of who you are, I think that's where you can get lost. That's where you can kind of go into a dark place because yeah, everybody's aspirations, including ours, I think, yeah, was always to play professionally. And Manuel and I, post graduation, we actually took an extra semester. We were fifth year. I actually had an
Mhm,
injury in college, so I took a medical red shirt, and uh, and I played a fifth year. And after that, it was always yes, I want to go play, and we want to
mhm,
take that step in doing that. And so we did, try that route. We did try to go play professionally, and funny enough, we were also introduced by the end of our college career to the U.S. futsal national team.
mhm,
And so Keith Tozer was the coach then, and we got a call to go to a camp. And Manuel and I were familiar with futsal. We played it when we were young, and we took that opportunity. And Manuel and I got chosen to go to a massive tournament, the Grand Prix, in the Amazons in Brazil. And so we had the privilege of playing with the U.S. futsal national team right after college. And
cool,
so, that gave us another opportunity. It gave us more fire, right, to keep playing and to continue to pursue. But I think, there was a time, Manuel and I were both in Florida at that time with Miami FC and doing a trial where we actually called, and we had a great trial. We actually did very well. And but the professional route was, again, it was a route that when you don't have an agent with you and somebody helping you navigate,
mhm,
it's a very challenging route, and
mm,
we didn't have that. We had each other, and we had, my dad, with some contacts that he had. And so after
mhm,
that tryout, Manuel and I actually called my dad, and we told him, uh, we're done.
We're done.
We
Yeah.
we we
yeah,
That was the hardest thing.
that,
That was the hardest
I
decision.
think that was the hardest decision for us, especially talking to my dad about it, because what we realized, I think, also was, you do get your education, right? This there becomes this defining moment of what do I, what if I don't, right? You start getting older, and you go, what if I don't make
right,
pro, or what if I don't go this
right,
route? And you also look at what the professional scene is, and you say, if I don't go MLS, I'm going to do USL or Division 2, or try to
mm,
go play overseas in some lower division. And what is that like, right? And that's living
right,
with 10, 15 other guys, making no
mm,
money, of
mm,
you're living a different life. And so I think Manuel and I looked at each other, and we're like, look, we have degrees. You know, we want to try something different, right? We've been
yeah,
playing soccer whole, so it was let's try something different. But never, I think, within the moment we were thinking like, I think at that time was the only time we said, what else can we do? Right? Like,
right,
what else is there to do that wasn't with soccer? Right? Because we never tried anything else, uh,
right,
other than being in the game. So
yeah. I mean, I think it's the perfect storm of y'all's experience. I mean, I think the coaching throughout your time from junior high all the way up, and your experience of being what elite soccer looks like, right? And I think just the thoughtfulness you guys have and how much you obviously care for the sport, but for the players, right? I think that's just been incredible to hear. So let's hear a little bit about what you guys are building. First, I think we need an introduction to futsal as it's compared to the YMCA soccer that we all know and probably grew up playing. Tell us a little bit about that concept. What's the difference? And then a little bit into the timeline of how you guys decided to formally introduce City Futsal and what that's been from the days of you alluded to the $2 entry fee to play in a rec gym to where you guys now have your own facility and looking to expand.
Yeah. No, I can touch up
the
on the
futsal,
futsal side. We try to go back and forth so
yeah,
we don't drown each other out here. We both get a little bit of camera time. No, futsal is a 5v5 sport played on a hard surface. Um, it's played with one goalie and four on the court, and it's played with a ball that is denser. So it's
Mm,
just you take a soccer ball, you shrink it, right? Same amount of air, and so the ball dies on contact. So it's
mm,
not a if you say it's a heavier ball, it's not heavier, right? It just dies on contact. It doesn't have a bounce. So it's really supports, a lot of ball handling.
Hmm.
We always like to tell people it's like basketball with your feet if you want to look at it
Right.
like that way. Right? And in Brazil and Spain, um, they use a lot of basketball tactics and basketball skills and stuff that incorporate into futsal a lot, just their
Interesting.
rotations and things like that. So yeah, no, we always say, basketball coach can make a really good futsal coach at the end of the day.
Mm.
Uh, they know the court very well. But yeah, so it's 5v5s played, there's 2 20-minute halves. The clock stops every time the ball goes out of bounds. Um, there's also a foul count. So after a certain number of fouls, then you get a direct shot on the keeper. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's got a lot of I
Timeouts.
mean, you have a timeout per
Oh, cool.
period as well. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of similarities to what soccer is. I mean, it's played on you know, a field that's delineated just like a soccer
Um,
field, but it's obviously smaller, it's condensed. Um, and you've had your goalie, you have your field players, your core players, and you're scoring goals just like you are in soccer, right? It's just a smaller field, like we always say. And it's funny enough, throughout this whole journey of ours with futsal, we were purists at the very beginning. It was just like
mm.
futsal is played on a hard surface. That's the only way to do this.
Right.
And today, kind of going through our journey and maturing through this, and obviously understanding the market here in the United States, we also now have these 5v5 pitches that, they're turf, but we do the same. We line them just like a futsal court, and we
Mm.
use a ball. Now we use a ball. It's a turf ball, so it's like a soccer ball. Got married to a futsal ball, and they had this other kind of mixed ball. So it
Yeah.
doesn't it bounces not like a soccer ball, and it doesn't die as much like a futsal ball. So it's played specifically on the turf field. So it kind of continues, and it was really a good bridge.
Did you have to invent that ball? Or was that
So
just people
we always
playing?
like to say we did. We always say we like to say we did, but no, Brazil invented that ball,
Okay.
and
Okay.
actually, Brazil is one of the only countries that produces that ball. We do
Wow.
get the ball from Brazil, so we import it from Brazil, and we use it for all of our league play on the turf. And
Incredible.
yeah, I know, and it's a great bridge for what, people maybe that are not comfortable with the hard court or futsal. I mean, hey, and I say this, Mitch, because 15 years ago, people people were not comfortable
No.
with the
Right.
court.
Right.
Today, Sim and I always joke, man, if I would have started today what I was doing, geez, but I guess it was us and our 15 years of work to get
Right.
this market really kind of amped up and understanding and educated on the game. Today people really understand, what futsal, the benefits it does. But a lot of our facilities, especially the one in Colony and in Dallas, we have these small sided 5v5 pitches that we do youth and adult leagues with this turf ball. And it's great, man. I mean, it's so much fun. I mean, it's basically you're playing futsal. And we always say, you know, it's small sided, right? We're local small sided at the end of the day. And we try to marriage that futsal, the word futsal with small sided so people can really grasp
Okay.
what we're really all about, right?
Yeah, and Manuel kind of gives you, fast forward things, and
Yeah.
starting where we were purists. Manuel and I started City Futsal and incorporated it in 2011, and we were talking about SMU. We used Crumb facilities, the basketball facilities. There was our
Right.
first futsal tournament we used. So, the school, supporting Manoa and I as alumni there and saying, yeah, go ahead and
Uh-huh.
use these tournaments. And so it was a great kickoff for kind of us and our brand and who we were. And we were actually Dallas futsal when we started, and then later switched to City Futsal because our Winona's idea was always that City Futsal can go anywhere. Dallas Futsal
Yeah.
stays in Dallas. And so,
Well, we introduced our logo in Crumb. We introduced our logo. It was black and white. the City
Mhm.
Futsal logo that we had. It was black and white, and it said Dallas Futsal. And I remember sitting with my dad, Esteban, myself, my younger brother. We were all 4 in it at that point.
Mhm.
And when we that was the whole thing. We were already thinking, like, 10, 20
Right.
years down the road,
Yeah.
we're like, this can't just be Dallas. We've got to go to we got to go into everywhere.
Yeah,
Right.
and Mitch, I mean, we started as, and again, people see what it is today, and they don't really see what we did. I think back then,
Right.
there was no infrastructure, there was no referees, there was really nothing. I mean, there were some rogue futsal leagues that were around, but um, we kind of wanted to introduce it from a training aspect. We thought it was important from player development, right, that we introduce futsal as a training tool for a soccer player.
Mhm.
And Lo and I started a school called Futsal Developmental Soccer Program.
Yeah.
These kids in 5 days a week. It was very holistic. We had a Tai Chi, yoga, mental toughness, performance, futsal, soccer,
Wow.
and then we obviously brought the leagues online, the tournaments, the camps, and we built our own referee base, right? And we were the referees,
Jeez.
we were the janitors, we were the trainers,
Yeah.
we did it all. It was 7 days a week, and we were always in the gym. And so we did that for a long, long time. And I think you know, we could go back and say what we would have never done in the past.
Mhm.
One of those, never start a club. We ended up starting a soccer club,
Mm.
and that was using futsal to then develop soccer players and then have this club. Because again, I think what we got into was more of like, how do we show the public, right,
Impact.
everybody, how
Yeah.
these players are performing on the soccer field? Because that was always the question: how do you translate futsal to soccer? How does this
Right.
work? Yada yada. And so we felt like we had to do that, which was probably an idea. It was an experience that we did. We don't take anything back from it, but we moved away from the club very quickly, and actually COVID hit. And we kind of switched our gears to this model that we have in Dallas and the Colony today, which is
Mhm.
small sided turf, small sided court, futsal, soccer, and how do we got away from training. Milo and I were pretty burnt out on that.
I'm
And
sure.
that was kind of the decision Milo and I, that was the turning point for Milo and I to say, how do we how do we really make this into a business, right? That
Right.
we can grow and scale and get to more people, right?
Right.
Because before it was putting your head down and it was working, right?
For
We didn't
sure.
know what we
Too
were
dependent
building.
on your hours, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't, but also, I don't want to discount all the experiences, the journey
Yeah.
we went through. I mean, at the end of the day,
Absolutely.
for any entrepreneur, anybody who's looking to do something right with their life, you've got to, we're, people always say we're risky guys, you guys, and Sim and I always tell them,
Mhm.
I consider myself, I have zero risk. I mean, if I'm betting on myself, then there's no risk in that for me at the end of the day and for
Right.
us. And I think for us, you got to think, you know, if you're looking to do something, you're trying to solve a problem at the end of the day, right? And then how do you solve? I mean, how do you solve a problem when you don't know what the equation is to solve that problem, right?
Right.
You're going through different renditions, and you're trying to put things together to try to solve that. And I think every step that we took, I mean, hey, yeah, you can walk out and just play on our court today. Well, Steve and I had to be there 2 hours early, taping courts, taping the
Jeez.
box, right? Putting goals together, right? You know, giving this whole, building out the infrastructure,
Right.
teaching the referees, right? Coaching the game, and then reffing the game, and then cleaning the courts, and then
Jeez.
selling the league. And, so, you
Yeah.
had to go through all that, and it was, yeah, then it was trying to educate the public, and then trying to show the public, hey,
Right.
I'm not just taught, this
Yeah.
is how, it's not just the
A
kid
benefit
trains
here.
football. I'm actually going to show you how they, can incorporate, and they can develop into really good soccer players. So I don't want to discount all of that, what we did at all.
No,
And I don't want to
I
say
think
that it's not
you
anything.
stated really well, I think, in the equation piece, right? Like, you spent 10 years figuring out the equation, right? And a lot of people, you have the statistics of startups that quit, and it's mostly because the founders are like, this is too much work. Like, I don't know the time from the family, but you guys stuck with it, building out what it is, the formula, what the business model needs to be while wearing every hat possible. And now you guys have come across the model that works, that's scalable. So let's talk about, you have the two locations now. What is the next 3 to 5 to 10 year vision for you guys, and what you want to hope to see accomplished as you kind of now we're in this next chapter of scaling, right? And what you
Yeah.
guys hope to achieve with that.
Yeah, no, we have the 2 locations, you're correct. Within the next, 12 months, we have 3 projects that are moving forward. So 3 new facilities that we're gonna be building in the Metroplex. More of that to come. I don't wanna, spoil anything with that, but
Mhm.
more of that to come. And, I think within the next 5 years and beyond, our Manoa and I's goal is to, have between 50 and 75 small-sided surfaces in
Awesome.
DFW, within the next, 5, let's say 5 to 10 years.
2030 is our mark.
Manuel
And
is ambitious.
are these gonna be all owned and operated by you all, or are you looking for to franchise, or kind of how do you
No,
think
right
about
today,
the scale?
today when we talk about DFW, we believe that you know, we can focus on DFW as a core group, our group here. Franchise in that's always been something that, uh, going back to people pulling you in different directions, we try to stay focused on what we want to get done here in DFW. And I
Yeah.
think if we can, along the way, if that's an opportunity that makes sense and
Mhm.
they're the right people, the right operators, the right partners to come in and support that. I think less of just money, but also strategically as a partner to support that vision, then we are absolutely open to something like that. But
Yeah.
today, our focus is really DFW. North Texas. We want to focus on this market and really give really localize our model so that you're not having to drive 45 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it may be away. We want to be in your
Yeah.
neighborhood. We want those small sided courts, turf there
Love it.
for you to be able to experience.
Yeah, but it's also it's also us. There you go. It's proving the model, right? And you're always it's a
Always.
continued always proving what you're doing. And it's not to anybody else, right? Now it's proving to ourselves we can do this. I mean, for the past 5 years, Steve and I have been in this growth mode and
Yep.
really making sure the model works in terms of, because it's not just a field, right? It's
Right.
how it's built, right? What kind of real estate deal you're doing, making sure it's done the right way, and then also
Mhm.
operational, that we can scale vertically, and we have the right systems in place to be able to do that as well. So there's a
Absolutely.
lot of different pieces that go into, I think, when you think about growth and you think about wanting
And
to go.
yeah, and no one can know that better than the guys who are taping the field and being the janitors and doing every step of the way to get there. So, I mean, this has just been such an awesome story, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to walk it all the way back from the time when you
Of
were
course.
10 years old, traveling to Brazil to be introduced to the sport that you now love and are sharing with our community. Really excited to see how this all grows and goes, and check in with you guys in 2030 when you have 75 locations, and uh, you've transformed yourselves from soccer players into operators, real estate folks, and everything in between. So, guys, thank you for making the time, and look
Of
forward to
course.
sharing this and watching you guys
Absolutely.
grow in the near and long term future.
Appreciate you, Mitch, for
Absolutely appreciate you
giving us the opportunity to talk a
and the
little bit about it and
platform.
the platform to do that. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, all those listening, if you got kids or even the adult leagues, time to get out there and play at City Futsal. And I know I'll have my kids out there as soon as they hit the age requirement. But thanks again, guys.
Cheers, Mitch.
Thanks, Mitch. Appreciate you.
Thank you to our incredible sponsors, Security National Bank, Hilltop Property Tax, Mignon Steakhouse, Sound of a Rose podcast, and the SMU Cox School of Business for making this all possible.